So after a terse reunion with dear old dad, Marcus suggests that the best way to test and compare the sample is against the locust corpses the cog buried in a mine beneath a nearby fort. Along the way, Marcus figures out that the people the swarm kidnapped aren't just being taken somewhere and killed, but being cocooned in pods. He gets to experience everything firsthand when Marcus himself is kidnapped by a snatcher, cocooned and connected to the swarm's hive mind. JD and company manage to hunt Marcus down, thankfully reaching him alive and getting the lowdown. As it turns out, the swarm are actually the locust. After Adam Phoenix's device went off, many locusts didn't die, but instead went into a state of extended hibernation, whereupon they evolved into their new swarm forms. The people being kidnapped are placed into cocoons in order to be converted, bolstering their numbers after near extinction to put a dent in them, except for Kate's mom, though, who's being held in another locust burial site, treated oddly differently than the others, which is really interesting. We'll get to here in a moment, but obviously this moment, guys, was really interesting, really going into the hive mind and really starting to understand and learn about this part of the story and what the locust and the swarm, obviously being the same thing. What are they doing here? They're trying to create a new army, essentially. So figuring they could use some extra firepower on their side, Marcus calls his old gear buddies, Damon Baird and Augustus Cole, to help escort JD and his friends to the site. They're a little grayer, ever so slightly wiser, but no less lethal. They even help bag one of the Goliath-sized creatures in the processes. Obviously, Kate does finally find Raina at the second swarm hive, but it's not pretty. She's already half assimilated, begging for the mercy to kill her. Yet, it's another Dom's wife situation, but with a bit of a worrisome twist. Before putting poor Raina out of her misery, Kate gets a minute to say goodbye, whereupon Raina gives Kate a medallion, saying it belonged to her grandmother. That'd be awfully sad if, for some reason, the medallion didn't have the Locust Horde's sigil on the back of it, which is really huge, guys. Obviously, Kate Diaz, if we go down the line, was, obviously, going to be, when we're talking about the grandmother, we're talking about Queen Mira here. Obviously, Queen Mira being the locust that swarm queen. So it's kind of like this idea. What they were trying to do was, that being the swarm, we're trying to, have Raina. Essentially, was she going to become the next swarm queen? What was happening there? And then obviously passing that, the sigil over to Kate is giving you that insinuation that, hey, it's you gotta continue what was started and take your rightful place as the queen of the swarm. And so obviously, guys, this leads us into Gears 5, which sometime after the whole nasty business with Raina, JD, Kate, and Del are full-time COG soldiers helping to fight the good fight. This will turn out to be the biggest mistake any of them could make. Even before the game begins, JD's already got a big red mark in his ledger after a protest goes wrong, and under pressure, he orders his squad to fire on civilians. Things get a hell of a lot worse, however, when Delta Squad is called out to a settlement after it's attacked by the swarm. When things get too hairy, JD calls for Baird to fire the Hammer of Dawn, despite Baird's warning that it's still under maintenance. The strike is successful until the satellite malfunctions and can't stop firing, resulting in a catastrophic loss of life. Kate's issues almost pale by comparison. Post Raina, Kate exhibits all the signs of PTSD, including a series of blinding headaches that become progressively worse over time. After JD's little incident, Kate goes out to the exile camps to try and convince her uncle Oscar to get in league with the COG. When the swarm attack there, Kate is abducted by a snatcher, discovering that while connected to the hive mind, she has control over low-level enemies. That doesn't, however, apply to a new type of swarm, the Warden, who manages to reach Oscar and splatter his head while Kate watches helplessly. So this is really in my mind, Gears 5 is kind of where the game goes even darker in certain ways. I mean, sure, there's certain elements that aren't dark, guys, but when you talk about it from a psychological perspective, there's things that get darker and darker within this story because Kate Diaz is now at the forefront. You're playing as Kate Diaz. She's supposed to take her rightful spot as the queen of the swarm, and this is where her legacy really becomes, or kind of really starts. So, horrified, but what by what might be going on in her head, Kate and Del go off on their own into the frozen tundra beyond Cog territory. Marcus guides them back to the New Hope labs where he finds Niles, hoping that his knowledge of how the Locust came to be might explain Kate's predicament. The good news is, yes, Niles is in robot form, is still tooling around the place and has answers. So the bad news is everything else. Apparently, while Niles' project treating Rustlung accidentally resulted in the Locust, one child turned out to be immune to the other uglier side effects. While raised in the lab, she would assist Niles and his colleagues with developing the Locust, including a berserker called the Matriarch, which would amplify her connection and ability to communicate with the swarm. That child, in case you hadn't guessed, was Mira. Once she's all grown up, Mira gets into a relationship with a fellow geneticist, Dr. Torres, which results in Mira becoming pregnant with, drumroll please, Kate's mother, Raina. Eventually horrified at what they were helping create, Torres manages to escape the facility with Raina. Niles, not wanting Mira to follow, tells her that Raina died. That results in a much worse outcome, Mira's rebellion against humanity, and well, we all know how that turns out. So obviously, guys, this is where Kate Diaz kind of had to make some really tough choices, and it's going to be interesting to see how this leads into Gear 6. So Kate, now armed with the truth, escapes the lab and kills the Matriarch on the way out, which unfortunately wakes up Raina in the process. Kate and Del eventually hook back up with JD and their brash colleague Foz in the desert with old school UIR soldier Paddock looking to repair the Hammer of Dawn using one of the UIR's old rockets. While that happens though, Raina sends her army straight to the Cog's capital city to pick a fight. Once the hammer is up and running, Kate and her company, after narrowly escaping arrest for her little excursion, helps the Cog fight off Raina's forces, which also includes a brand new massive beastie called the Kraken. The battle is hard won, but not before Raina herself shows up to take one of Kate's friends out of the picture. Depending on your choice, either Del dies, after which JD truly reconnects with Marcus and realizes the value of his own life, or JD dies, leaving Marcus alone, having lost even more of his family to the swarm. Either way, Kate, having gotten all the closure she needs, sets out without her personal baggage to go slay the new queen. Now, they say to go slay the new queen, and that's kind of like what she's planning on doing. However, is that what she's going to do? And that's why I feel like this story, guys, is so... it could go on for so long, and that's what's so awesome about it. Where are we going in Gear 6? Is Kate Diaz going to be the main focal point? Is she going to be the one that we play as, the main character we play as in Gear 6? I think she is going to be that person, but it's going to be interesting what's going to be canon and what's not. Was Del's canon the way it's going to go, or was it JD's way that it's going to be really interesting to see how that goes. Are there going to be more choices along the journey? I'm sure there will be, guys, in Gear 6, and that's what I'm really excited about moving forward, is how this story is going to progress in the future. We're going to have to wait and find out, guys, in Gear 6, which should be coming out in 2024 or 2025 from the Coalition, a game I'm obviously the most anticipated game of the future for me, and I am incredibly excited about it. I can't wait for it, guys. I can't wait to continue giving you all more content along the journey.